Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic:
what happened in Vegas that didn't stay in Vegas? Co-workers got drunk and hooked up in Vegas while we were there for business. She got pregnant, they decided to give it a shot, they've been together happily for 10 years. This is the stuff I want to read, there's so much bad stuff going on already that you can't ignore. Oh, he forgot to mention that the both of them were happily married to other people at the time and abandoned the current spouse and children to give it a go. I know a guy whose wife came home from a convention in Vegas with a bun in the oven. She must have had a good time. The husband had a vasectomy a couple of years earlier. Wow, it's a Vegas miracle. Tears of joy. The second coming of Jesus. 15 years or so ago, back when I was a bartender, had one of my regulars come in, pretty typical middle-class dad type, khaki shorts and polo shirts, basic white guy haircut, and tell me all about going to Vegas the week before with some friends, and his experience smoking crack out of a light bulb in the back seat of a Honda Civic with a couple of hookers, just prior to taking advantage of their services. Told him that was exactly the kind of story they meant needed to stay in Vegas. It was always weird seeing him at the restaurant with his wife and kids after that. That's why you only tell your bartender. This falls under bartender-client privilege. OJ breaking into the hotel room to steal merch. Of all the stupid things to get arrested for after being exonerated for murder. Only thing worse would have been shoplifting at Walmart. The daughter of the judge who sent him away is a stand-up comedian. She actually has a bit about how she used to get sent to her room by the same woman that sent OJ to jail. My mom made out with wee man in the pool at the Venetian. I tell that TID bit to anyone that will listen. Must have been the shallow end. On a work trip we were in Vegas for a weekend. One of the work managers got caught feeling up one of my coworkers. It was kinda an open secret he was creeping on the women in the office, but then he got caught by several employees with the owner in the room, so he got canned. Good riddance. David Copperfield's sexual assault allegations. He can't make that shit disappear. David Copperfield. I had never heard of this until now, and all I can say is wow, it's worse than I had imagined. The Guardian did a big report on allegations and they are extensive. https://www.theguardian.com/news/article/2024/may/15/david-copperfield-investigation. He's very fond of tongue-kissing teenage girls. That was almost 40 years ago. That Prince Harry scandal, with the naked billiards. That got out. What happened? Prince Harry was photographed in Vegas playing strip billiards in his suite with some girls he apparently met at the hotel bar. Photos then leaked out. I assume it was some of the girls' friends that snapped the photos and sold them. My best friend came to visit me in SoCal and I thought it would be fun to take her to Vegas for a weekend, as she had never been there. That's when I found out that she had a serious gambling addiction. Out of everywhere I could have taken her. That's like locking an alcoholic in a liquor store. For real. I'm 35 and I've known her since I was 13, and I had absolutely no idea this was a problem. She was very good at hiding it, I guess. She finally came clean to her family so they can keep an eye on her and hold her accountable, and she's good now. My teenager, born several years ago, 9 months after a Vegas getaway. Edited for the pedantic folks commenting that I gave birth to a teenager. Open mouth smile. My friend and her husband are expecting their first in September after a Carrie Underwood concert in Vegas. Jesus took the wheel so they could bang in the back seat. I'm more surprised that you birthed a whole teenager than that it happened in Vegas. Met a British girl who had just ditched her friend who she was traveling across America with. The friend was having issues, so girl decided to go solo without much of a plan. I traveled around in a camper van and my new job pushed the start date back a month. So me and here ended up spending that month together around Utah and Arizona. That sounds pretty damn cool. Was it a romantic fling or more of just a friends thing? Do you keep on contact? FWB, we went our separate ways after a while. Still have her contact info but haven't talked in a long while. Homer and Ned dishonored their wedding vows. He had a wine spritzer. Spritzer. Herpes. That shit'll come back with you. I swear, this is the #1 answer every time someone posts this question, lol. Because it's a quote from The Hangover. Got married and can you believe the audacity? She came home with me. I totally forget people get married all the time there. Tailhook scandal, 1991. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/tailhook_scandal. I was there, in the hallway of the Hilton, watching the Admiral's aide enter the gauntlet. I was supposed to testify in the trial, but the judge cut the witness list. Tell us more. Or do an armor. What's missing from the wiki article? Is it sanitized versus what really happened? 3 officers were taken to courts-martial, but their cases were dismissed after the presiding military judge determined that Chief of Naval Operations Frank Kelso, who had attended the conference, had concealed his own involvement in the events in question. No officers were disciplined for the alleged sexual assaults. Lol, what? Welp, can't court-martial you since Frankie was there. Welcome to how the Navy still does business when senior officers are involved. Read up on the Fat Leonard scandal. In a weird roundabout way, this is why I live in Reno. Came here for Tailhook, loved the city, and my bro-in-law was stationed at Nars Fallon, so we got the local tour and fell in love with Reno and decided to move here since I didn't have to go to her office anymore. If Tailhook had still been in Vegas, I don't see us saying, this is a nice town, let's give it a go. Fell in love with Reno is something I never thought I'd hear in my life. I lived there for a couple years when the awful burger was still at the Little Nugget. Best burger I've had in my life. Never heard of that before, that is super fucked up. Still happening, albeit on a less condoned scale, according to my female friends in the Navy, Coast Guard. No officers were disciplined for the alleged sexual assaults. Wow, just wow. I wasn't aware of that part of the story. So, I went to Vegas with a few friends for a weekend of fun. We hit the casinos, watched some shows, and enjoyed the nightlife. On our last night, we decided to try the famous Vegas buffet. We were all pretty full, but my buddy, Mike, decided to go back for one more plate of crab legs. As he was walking back to our table, he tripped over someone's bag and dropped the entire plate of crab legs. They went flying everywhere, and one particularly large crab leg landed in the open purse of a lady sitting nearby. She didn't notice at first, but when she finally saw it, she screamed like it was a live crab attacking her. Mike, trying to be helpful, reached into her purse to retrieve the crab leg, but of course, this looked incredibly suspicious. Security rushed over, and before we knew it, Mike was being escorted out of the buffet, crab leg in hand. It's always a Mike's fault. Fear and loathing. One might even go as far as saying that Hunter S. Thompson happened in Vegas. Whether or not it's total bullshit, it is a glorious story. Rolling Stone magazine did send him to cover that desert motorbike race, and that shit is what they got in return, and they published it and kept him employed. Because even if it's total bullshit, he sold a story everyone wanted to read. Thompson did get into real trouble one of his gigs where he was touring with the Hells Angels, and then when drunk, passed out or whatever, they discovered his draft of what he was writing, and it was like describing them raping this girl and like all these horrific things they actually do because they're a fucking goddamn motorcycle gang that somehow we accept in American society. Thompson was lucky to escape that journalist investigation. They did beat the shit out of him after he released the book and told him not to. They literally gang raped a 14-year-old girl, and didn't want Hunter talking about it. The book is called Hell Angles, and it's one of my favorites of his. Stanley Cup. The Capitals disagree. Technically they won it in Vegas and took it with them, so it didn't stay that year either. Triple H drugging Stephanie McMahon and marrying her in a drive-through chapel. They retconned it later and said she was in on it, in part because I think it was insinuated that he had his way with her afterwards, and that was like the one thing that didn't fly in the Attitude Era. Edit, I just looked it up. He outright says he raped her multiple times after he drugged her. Disclaimer, while the story was distasteful and terrible, it was just that, a story. Paul, Triple H, Levesque and Stephanie McMahon have been happily married for years and have 3 daughters together. That wasn't a test. I got married. He didn't stay there, followed me home 26 years ago. Don't believe that slogan. Susie Favor Hamilton, former Olympian, outed as a high-end escort. Never a good sign when your Wikipedia career section is split into running and prostitution. Quote, yeah, I hate running. Off to Google. Where do people even find high-end escorts? Is it a website that only rich people get access to? In the modern age, if you see an IG model that has DM for inquiries, better than 50% chance they're a high-end escort. It's how my friend's family and friends found out how she was paying for grad school and all her vacations. Just like asking for a Z job in Beerfest. If you have to ask, you can't afford it. The mob hits that got dumped out in the desert. Lot of holes in the desert, and a lot of problems are buried in those holes. And a lot of solutions. I work for a national company that destroys medical waste and animal, human tissue. Las Vegas is the only place we can't or any other company physically service and pick up that waste. I'm convinced it's because of the mob. I wish I was kidding. Last year too, so many bodies were found because the lake nearly dried up. Do you get paid in gold coins? I'm guessing probably not. Because the cleanup crews in Vegas apparently do. Lake Mead never gives up its dead. Well, it didn't before climate change. I was wondering how far down I'd have to scroll for this. Guy named Benny shot me near Good Springs, so I got revenge. Dude, me too. Ain't that a kick in the head? My friend Jana getting both buttocks tattooed. What did it say? It was simply AW on each cheek. It said wow. Fallout New Vegas. You have a very bright future ahead of you. Because of your actions today, so does the rest of mankind. Ain't that a kick in the head? Went to Vegas to celebrate my anniversary. Was sick as all shit. My lymph nodes were so swollen I couldn't swallow, and breathing wasn't easy. I was seen by a wonderful primary, urgent care doctor who treated me with basic antibiotics and sent me home to my hotel. I get better over the week of antibiotics and am home and seem back to normal. And, yet, months later, and I've lost 60 pounds. I don't sleep. I mean, literally, I'm going 72 hours without sleep at a time before I pass out for an hour or two nap. I have night sweats and faint frequently. After giving it a bit to make sure it wasn't some basic virus, I tried to get in to see someone, but my primary care physician had just recently retired and getting a new patient appointment takes a bit. I tell you this so you understand why it took me 6 weeks to see someone after I had decided it was concerning. I went to see my new OB for possible early onset menopause. It sorts lines up with the symptoms and my age and my family history and whatnot. The new OB joked about getting a fully physical and invasive exam on my birthday. Yeah. I managed to schedule this shit show for my birthday. She says that there is no indication that my vagina has prolapsed, phew. And that there is no possibility that I was at the point of any kind of menopause. So, she dipped out to confer with someone else. She returned to inform me I'd need labs because the only thing she could think of was HIV. So, I spent my birthday waiting for lab results on a rapid HIV test. Good news. Negative. Not good news, other tests aren't. Turns out that while it isn't HIV, it is possibly leukemia. Which likely first exhibited symptoms back on my anniversary trip in Vegas. So, long story short, TL, doctor went to Vegas, maybe brought home cancer. You had me on an emotional roller coaster with this one. Have you figured out what it is yet? Sadly, I am in limbo as I await more test results. Small victory was that I was back up over 100 pounds officially at my appointment. Maybe the real Vegas was inside of us all along. I'm sorry, I use humor to cope with things. I hope you're doing okay.